keep telling you I'm going to cut all of your ums and put them in at the end one day.
Have you done that?
Who knows? Well, if you listened, you would know what I do.
True. Very true.
That's how I get you to listen to the podcast you're in.
I just really don't enjoy listening to my own voice.
Me neither.
Although I will admit that I have gotten better.
We're better. We're good at this. We're so good.
I feel like my voice sounds a lot different than it did in the beginning. So
mine too. I used to be so high pitched.
Yeah.
I had customer service.
Yeah,
voice
I think
all
we
the
both
time.
did.
Hey everyone, how's it going?
Welcome. And yeah, it's just like too peppy.
Oh, well, on that note, hey everyone, welcome to another episode of I Love This, You Should Too. It's me, your host, Indy Peppy Randawa. I won't talk like that anymore. I'm sorry. That probably threw a lot of people off. And here is my lovely co-host, Samantha, 3 octaves lower Randawa.
That's me.
Now we'll just talk normal.
Okay, great.
So what are we doing here today, Sam?
We are about halfway through our Audrey Hepburn month, and we are going to be discussing the 1961 classic Breakfast at Tiffany's.
So we're doing Audrey Hepburn month. We started with my favorite Audrey Hepburn movie, Roman Holiday. I said before we got to Breakfast at Tiffany's that I didn't think it was in my top 5 Audrey Hepburns. You said it was your favorite.
Yes, absolutely.
So now you said you love this movie and it's your favorite Audrey Hepburn. Upon a rewatch, how are you feeling?
I love it.
Still your favorite
Still my
Audrey
favorite
Hepburn?
Audrey.
Over Roman Holiday?
Yes.
Wow. You are incorrect.
I was waiting for that. No, I don't know. I feel like this movie came to me at a time in my life when I really needed it. I don't know. I just have the nostalgia, and then not seeing it for many, many years. Not seeing it recently until now. It all came back to me and I'm like, yeah, this is a great movie. And I really enjoyed it. So yeah, still my favorite.
Well, I'm very curious to find out what you love about it because this is her most beloved movie.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Probably. Definitely her most well-known.
Yes.
I did not love it.
Oh.
The further away I am, the less I like it even. When you're watching it and Audrey Hepburn's on stage, and I like George Papard too. I think he was very good.
So charming.
I get it when I am watching them. The moment I stop and think about it, I'm like, and I don't love it as much. And it's not like the blatant racism. There's that. But that I knew going into it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of smaller things. I just don't love the script, it turns out. I feel like it is saved by these performances for sure. And I like the movie. It's a good movie. I'm not going to be up here saying, hey, Breakfast at Tiffany's is garbage. It's a very good movie. I like it very much. But I still don't think it's in my top 5 Audrey Hepburns.
So I, in preparation for this, did my homework. And I listened to the audiobook again, because it's been, many years since I've read that either as well. So I listened to the book. And I just really want to see an adaptation of the book.
Yes.
I want to see the book from start to finish. And I'm sure we'll talk about it, but the differences between the book and the movie, I just really want to see Truman Capote's original work.
Because I would argue that the ending of this movie completely undoes what the book is trying to do.
Yes.
And probably what most of this movie is trying to do. So that's kind of the sticking point for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
But let's get into it. I feel like we have to just get it out of the way at the beginning so we can move on with the conversation and talk about Mickey Rooney's performance as, what's the character's name? Japanese McJapanesington?
Oh,
it's not,
Mr. Yunioshi.
Yeah, so it's brutal. It's super offensive. It's terrible.
Yeah.
We all know that. If you have an argument with that, you are wrong.
You are terrible?
So I don't think we need to waste too much time on that.
No.
But what I would like to talk about is it's also just bad, not just in its racism, but it's stupid in the character outside of the horrifically racist parts.
Yes. And so I'm just going to continuously quote the book, but he's in it for a paragraph. So it didn't need to be as dumb and long as it was.
It's slapsticky. And this movie has the habit of getting slapsticky, which is so incongruous with the rest of the movie. The rest of the movie is this story about someone trying to find their way and who they are themselves. Maybe two people trying to find that and hopefully finding it in each other. I think that's what the movie is trying to put forward.
Yeah.
We'll argue if it's successful or not.
Yeah.
But in that movie, well, let's have a guy who wakes up and smashes his head onto things and he's like, whoa, and like falling down. And then in the party scene too, we get all of this slapsticky stuff. Which in the party, a bunch of it I laughed at, and then it just kept going, and I'm like, oh, it's still happening, huh?
Yeah.
And this director did a bunch of Pink Panther movies, and like did he do The Party even? Maybe, but he does silent movie slapstick. That's what he does. And it really comes through in this, and it is to the detriment of the movie.
That makes sense, that it's very much like non-verbal comedy.
And if it is the guy that did The Party, that's also a movie where the main character is in brownface the whole movie.
Oh, well, that's not great.
Yeah.
Don't love that.
But he definitely did a bunch of Pink Panther movies and loves his silent movie style comedy. And that is not who should direct this movie.
No.
I didn't love the direction. And I think that's, I don't know, maybe sacrilegious because I think people love this movie and how it's shot. Well, I should say I don't mind how it's shot because the cinematography, especially the on the streets in New York stuff, is great. I think that looks good.
No, they did a good job of that.
I don't think this director has added anything to it.
No. And
that's Blake Edwards.
I agree with what you're saying. I think seeing it now as like a wizened old movie person, which is what you've made me.
Oh, awesome.
Awesome. I think I definitely see some of the like holes and the flaws in how this movie was directed and produced, but I just think it's such a classic, and I'm willing to overlook some of that stuff because it's such a great movie.
Yeah, I can be willing to overlook these unnecessary bits of slapstick. And I'm not going to say like, oh, the racism is fine because it was the time. No, it's not the time. There were a lot of movies at the time that knew this was terrible. In fact, if you read contemporaneous reviews, they're like, what the fuck's that about?
Yeah.
Like in 1961, they were like, that's dumb.
Yeah.
They knew it then. So it's not that it was the time. It was just poorly written. That part.
Neither of us are saying that Yuniyoshi's okay.
No. But the slapstick I can forgive. So then we're left with the two characters and their relationship. And is that enough to overcome it? Clearly you say yes.
Yes.
I think it is, but maybe not to the level that you believe. Well, maybe I'm speaking for you, but would you argue that this movie is about, two lost people and they find themselves in each other and they kind of find that solace or love that they have been missing in their lives, and hopefully at the end with this big kiss they'll find it together?
Yes.
I think that's what it's positing, but I find so much of the movie is kind of against that way of thinking, that if they're giving us that as the ending, which I think is the case as well, it feels either disingenuous or maybe at the best unsuccessful.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like I've seen this movie so many times that I'm like unable to look at it critically, but I do think I agree with what you're saying to a point, but I don't know that I can like fully say yes.
Yeah, and we don't have to argue about is this movie good, and I usually argue that that's what's wrong with sports media right now. Is like, who's the best? Let's rank them. Let's argue about it. I don't care. Is this movie amazing or is it just good? I don't care. We'll talk about it. But what I do care about is whether or not they were successful in the things they're trying to do and what they were trying to do.
Right.
And I think we had to start off with the character of Holly. Do you like her? Not do you like Audrey Hepburn?
No.
Because, we all know
we
that.
all like Audrey Hepburn. We're doing an Audrey Hepburn month.
Or maybe not do you like her?
I don't know if do you like her is the right question.
You're right. Question is Holly a dick?
Yes, but
okay.
I also like, or maybe like is the wrong word, but like I also find something in her character because she's this like broken bird who is doing everything she can just to survive. And like there's a lot of pieces of that character that I feel like maybe teenage girls or mid-something,
I saw myself in
girls.
her when I was 18, and I saw this person who was trying to find themselves and struggling for it. And and absolutely, I understand that.
And like, if you haven't read the book, you're like, okay, it's a happy ending in the end. So like maybe someday I'll get my happy ending. And that's like kind of the lens that you view it through. And I think as a like older teenager, I was probably like in high school when I saw this. And I think that like spoke to me, and it kind of solidified a place in my heart for Holly. And I like understand that, yes, she's a dick. She has no considerations for anybody else's feelings. She's really just doing what she has to do to survive. And she gets by not forming attachments with people and not caring about other people's feelings. And like, it's not a great way to live your life. Mm-hmm. But I do feel like back then and even now, there are some things in her character that take no prisoners attitude kind of makes you feel something.
I completely understand that. Often when we are about to watch a movie, I'll say lots of people love this movie that are bad people.
Yeah.
Like if I'm going to show you American Psycho or Taxi Driver, you'll say, assholes love those movies. And it's like, yes, they do, because they think that this is something to be emulated, when in fact this movie is either a satire of that way of thinking or showing you the dangers of that way of thinking. Mm-hmm. But people are dumb and they'll be like, yeah,
they read it the wrong way.
That Travis Bickle, cool guy, huh? Yeah. And you're like, no, he's the worst. I feel like this is the 18-year-old equivalent of that. Maybe 18-year-old girl equivalent, but it works on me too, because in a lot of ways, I'm an 18-year-old girl in my sensibilities of tastes in movies.
Yeah.
So it absolutely was way more effective on me in the past. But now I look at it and she's just quite mean a lot of the time. And one of the things that kind of solidified it for me in my mind this watch through is when she goes like, you remind me of Fred. I'm going to call you Fred. And this guy's like, what the fuck? I lost my entire identity in just like that. And it's gone. And now you're Fred.
Yeah.
And the arrogance it takes to just change someone's name, because I've seen that used in sitcoms. I think I've even written into a script myself to show someone's extreme narcissism is that they change someone's name to better suit what they feel like calling them.
Right.
And Holly does that.
Yeah.
And that is one side of it. And I completely understand the other end of the whole you can't love a wild thing. And I am putting up this wall. I will not get attached because I will protect myself by not becoming attached. That's one thing. And then there is this separate part that I think a lot of people watching the movie are like, oh, she's a free spirit, when she's just like an asshole to people. Yeah. And I think those are two separate things that we in media and in films especially often lump together. Just like a dark, mysterious loner for a man, but then you're like, yeah, but he's also a sociopath. But it's cool because he's like kind of handsome.
You know who else puts up walls and uses like meanness to be in charge of other people? High School Mean Girls. And I feel like this story resonates with people who either are mean and it like kind of reassures them, or wish that they were popular and see this like heroine who gets her happy ending in the end and says like, that's who I need to be to like do it. So I feel like that's why this movie resonates with like teenage girls so much.
Yeah.
Is because she's like brash and she's like harsh and she says what she needs to say and somehow does it with like a flick of her eyelashes and is so charming and beautiful and like gets what she wants in the end. And I feel like that's not a great like way to be. But I do kind of see how like a younger audience would see that and be like, yep, that's the one.
And the audience of the time and now, it's not like women have great representation in film now. No. But especially at the time, to see someone who is so strong-willed and Of course, she doesn't know what she wants, but she plays that she does. She commands a room.
Mm-hmm.
You could say in the grand scheme of things, yeah, she doesn't know what she wants. She doesn't know who she is even, really,
No.
right? But she commands the room. She is confident, or at least capable of portraying that.
Yeah.
And that is, of course, going to be something that is revolutionary at the time and something to be admired.
Yeah.
It's a shame that it is also lumped in with doing it at the expense of others. Like, it's not Fred, because I call him Fred now too.
Paul.
Paul Varjak.
Varjak. Varjak.
In a similar way, I always kind of cringe at the term girl boss. Because everyone's like, no, it's great. It's like, yeah, but it means being mean and taking charge. And I just don't like, the whole boss sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I appreciate the place it has on empowering women, but can't we empower people to be nice too?
Oh, totally. Totally.
And I think that's my issue with Holly, that there's so much good coming from this portrayal and from this character and her place in cinema, because it is iconic, nothing short of iconic. But also, she's a dick.
Yeah.
Like, she goes, hey, can I get into bed with you? And he's like, I guess. Hey, why are you crying? Don't worry about it. I hate Snoops. And you're like, what the fuck? It also relies on a not so great narrative of like, women are crazy. She's happy here. She's angry here. Whoa, she's all over the place. And I can't expect this movie to be all things to all people. But when we're talking about a movie that is so good, like I do think it is a very good movie, you can only nitpick, right? Because it's a good movie. It's so well performed, especially.
Oh, yes. And well shot. I agree.
Pretty well shot. Or when she says, like, you should be used to taking money from women, to like slam Paul, but you're doing the exact same thing.
Yeah, your entire job is the same thing. You just do it in restaurants.
And is the movie aware of that irony? Holly is not. I have my doubts of if the movie is that self-reflective, or if the movie itself has also bought into what Holly is selling. It's a fine line. It's
It is
tricky.
a fine line. It's a fine line. And yeah, Holly strikes me as someone who doesn't really think about what she says before she says it. And she says what she needs to say in the moment in order to get by, or to charm someone, or to, do the maximum damage sometimes, like with Paul. And because she's like hurting him because she's hurting. And I don't know. I do think it's problematic, but I also think I understand.
Yeah. I guess it is a incredibly realistic character too.
Absolutely.
Because she, of course, is not aware of all of these things. She's very stuck in her own head. She's not going to consider the world around her. She's doing what she needs to do, just like you said. But that is one thing, and a portrayal of a character like that in the movie, I have no issue with. I'm just not sure if the movie is aware of that itself. Like, the script doesn't seem to address it. And then when you get to this ending of... Because he does at the end say, like, yeah, people do belong to people. You belong to me. And then they kiss. And I'm like, wait, that's where this goes?
Yeah. And all of a sudden she's okay belonging to him, because that's been like a crux of the entire movie, is that she's like, I don't belong to anybody.
Yeah. I'm like this cat. She starts off with a monologue of, here is my character.
Yeah.
I am like this cat. Nobody belongs to me. I don't belong to anybody. And yeah, that's lazy writing. To just start off with a character talking for 5 minutes about what her character is.
Yeah.
And then there's these extended sequences where there's no character development at all, like the party scene, which is, I don't know, it's pretty fun, I guess, but man, it goes on, and it's not a tight movie.
No, there's definitely some extra stuff in there.
For a movie that spends so much time telling you how the characters think, they just express themselves and like, these are my thoughts on this situation. It doesn't need to be 2 hours. Let those things happen organically then, if you're going to take 2 hours.
Yeah.
And I feel like they didn't need to talk right to the camera as often as they did.
I definitely think that there were better ways to do it without all the exposition dumping that they did throughout this movie. And I would have liked to see maybe not like a tighter script, but like a less dumbed down script.
Sure.
Of like, oh, well, I'm Holly and this is how I feel. And this is all of my life story in 10 minutes. The end. Like, it was just too much.
So I'm sure you know it was going to be Marilyn Monroe at some point in this role. And of course, Audrey Hepburn is my favorite actress of all time. I kind of want to see it with Marilyn.
I think that would be interesting.
Because this is a movie about a country girl who goes to the big city and tries to be whatever to appeal to others for financial gain. Mm-hmm. I'm not a big Marilyn Monroe fan, but isn't that her life story?
Yeah, basically.
Audrey Hepburn, as great as she is, there's one thing I don't believe she is, and it's a country bumpkin. I'm not buying that for a moment that that's where she came from.
No, she's too fabulous in this movie. And she's too, like, clean looking. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I'm just going to talk about the book again for a second.
Sure.
So in the book, she is blonde. She's blonde and blue eyes.
Well, I believe Capote was thinking of Marilyn Monroe when he was writing it.
She is 19 years old. The opening scene with Yunioshi is almost exactly the same as the movie. But then that's the last time we see Yunioshi.
Does he hit his head and then mug to the camera?
No. It's the like yelling down the stairs part, and then the part about the photos. But it's literally like a 2-minute exchange and then you're done with him and we don't hear about Yunioshi again. So I'm annoyed that they put so much Yunioshi in this film and I had forgotten just how much there is. And then I really wanted to see the original ending where
I guess we should go over some of the big differences.
Yes.
So Paul does he ever have a name? Because he's just the narrator. I don't think
he does.
And he's probably gay or possibly asexual.
Yeah.
And Holly is more not explicitly, but it's more heavily hinted at that she's having sex for money.
Yes.
And is also bisexual.
Yes. Yeah.
And they don't end up together. In fact, there's no romance between them at all.
He does say that he's like falling in love with her.
Yeah,
but I think in the way where you're just kind of like obsessed with somebody.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, I want to be around this person.
Nothing about it seemed romantic.
No, I think falling in love in like a friendship sort of way.
Sure.
But yeah, he's very like not sexually attracted to her, it seems like. Mm-hmm. And yes, Holly just leaves New York, leaves the country, and just starts over.
The name Sally Tomato was in the book, which was shocking to me.
Which is hilarious.
Sally Tomato. That's what they named their Italian mobster.
Yeah.
Little on the nose.
Little on the nose.
Vinny Spaghetti was taken, I guess.
I guess so. It was in a different book. I don't want them to remake the movie. I want them to make the book.
Yeah, because that'd be a completely different movie.
Absolutely. And I think it would be very different and we wouldn't just be comparing the two movies as a remake.
Yeah. And
I think that there's room for an exact making of the book with that gritty storyline and everything, and just it's a lot sadder than the movie.
Yes.
And you get a lot more of Holly being this sad broken bird character who's just scraping by basically. And so yeah, I'd really like to see that. I think
that is part of the issue with how successful the movie is, because she never looks like she really needs any help from someone.
No.
She looks like she's doing great.
Yeah.
She's dressed great. Like, sure, she sleeps in late, but it's not like she's losing her house or...
No. Her job's at night. You sleep in late when your job's at night. Yeah, she seems very glamorous. She seems very, well dressed.
We're got everything she needs. We're not seeing that dark underside of her life. It seems fine.
Yeah, she's going out to dinners paid by other people.
Yeah.
It seems great.
Every now and then she just has to dodge some guy who
bites.
Sometimes she just leaves in the middle of the dinner or whatever, and then they come looking for her and they're like, hey, what happened? And she's like, yeah, don't worry about it. And then they don't after a while.
Yeah.
And there's stuff in there that could be a great commentary, but they don't really latch onto it. The idea of how the financial world and how money moves is controlled by men, and they feel that she owes them something in affection or time or something like that. There's something to be said there, but the movie doesn't seem terribly interested in any of that.
And I do think that's such an important like theme that they could have glommed on, and it would have been a lot deeper. The idea of women owing men something for like as a transaction almost.
Yeah.
And I think that would have been really important to kind of go over. But yeah, we don't get that. And it's all very glossy and happy and not scandalous. So, yeah.
And I could have been all right with them ending up together as the movie goes, but it seems quite abrupt. Mm-hmm. And like we said earlier, he does have to say that line of like, yeah, you belong to me now. If he had said something else and tried to say that you don't want to live in a cage and you think love is a cage and marriage is a cage, but your life you're living now is a cage. Mm-hmm. You're beholden to these men for their finances. I don't want to put you in a cage. I want to help set you free.
Yeah.
If he had said something like that and they fall in love, I'd be like, yeah, I buy that.
That makes sense. Yeah.
But to say like, yes, I own you and you own me.
Yeah.
And then she's like, oh, okay. That's
when ownership was the thing, it is weird.
I believe the ending, of course, not like the book, but then the screenwriter wrote an ending and then the director didn't like that. And then he put this ending on.
Oh.
I believe.
Huh. I just felt like it was too Hollywood.
Oh, yeah.
Like, give it a happy ending. We can't have a sad like sex worker running away in the night as our ending to the movie. Yeah. And like, I get it. It's not very marketable. It wouldn't have been the movie that everybody loves now.
Yeah.
But I just feel like it's so much more truthful if that's...
Sure. Or there can be some sort of medium where you can do a happy ending, but still remain true to the character, even not even the character of the book, but this character in the movie as she is. There is a way that you could give her a happy ending, but this didn't seem like it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I actually have pretty much no notes, which is odd for me, and especially odd for a very influential and an Audrey Hepburn movie. I usually have so much to say, but I don't know. I was just really wrestling with, is this a good story? Is this a good script? And I don't know. I know I like it because I'll watch Audrey Hepburn do pretty much anything.
Yeah.
She, in fact, makes fun of this in, I think it's Paris When It Sizzles. They are writing a movie and she goes like, oh, at the end, we'll just have the two big heads kiss in the rain at the end. That's all anyone ever wants anyways.
Oh, I like that. That's funny. I feel like we have to talk about the opening.
Oh, sure. The Breakfast at Tiffany's.
It's classic. And I feel like every teenage girl has wanted to eat a croissant and one of those little blue cups of coffee in front of Tiffany's and like just feel really glamorous and fabulous.
But isn't the meaning of that the exact opposite?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. But I think that is part of the complicated nature of this movie is everyone's like, oh, isn't this glamorous Breakfast at Tiffany's? It's like, no, it's about someone who stays out all night because that's how she has to make her money and she can't afford anything in there. So she just eats her breakfast and looks at it.
Yeah.
Maybe there's an analogy about how she latches onto that because these are beautiful things that are currently unowned and she sees herself as a beautiful thing that is unowned.
And I think it's part of it. She says later in the film that like, the only thing that cures the mean reds is going to Tiffany's and like just being in a fabulous, quiet place that nothing bad could ever happen there.
Yeah. And that is a beautiful idea that we see in some other movies too, of someone just having their place, their
safe
place of solitude.
Absolutely. And I feel like everybody has those like little places where you can go and just like celebrate or be sad or like do whatever you need to do, and it's a place away from your regular life. And I like that idea, and I've always liked that idea of it, of just like being safe somewhere. And Holly not living the safest life, not really having anywhere safe that she can land. Tiffany's is like the only place that she can go and be just a normal human and not know and like not have everyone know who she is or what she does for money and that kind of thing. I think it's kind of a nice quiet moment before the rest of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And such a lovely idea.
And so often in movies of this era that have those long opening titles, it's just wasted, and they make a great use of setting up the atmosphere of it in this one.
So one thing that they did in the movie that I was like, I understood, because it's hard to have a movie where one person doesn't have any like real defining characteristics and just narrates the whole movie. So like I understand why they added the decorator character in to give Paul like more of a like personality and like a storyline.
Well, I think it's also taking stuff that was taken away from Holly's character and putting it onto Paul and kind of putting them at an even level.
Yes.
I actually don't mind that at all.
No, me neither.
I think it is fine to have a place yourself here narrator main character, and I think we see that a lot. I think that's what half of Keanu Reeves' career is. And that's not a slam on Keanu. I love Keanu.
We love Keanu Reeves.
But I don't mind the changes they made to Paul in that respect.
No, me neither. And I liked that whole little storyline.
And her, I forget, that's Patricia Neal. And I liked her. She thought she was very good.
Oh, I thought that entire character was so great. And I really liked the juxtaposition of like, I think it's only like once or twice that they're actually in frame together, but the difference between Holly, who's dressing like she's rich and she's like beautiful and flamboyant and everything, and then you see Paul's decorator, and she is rich and fabulous, and like, and you can see the differences between them, and you can see Holly clock them, and she starts wearing different hats and like dressing. You can see her style change a little bit throughout the movie, and you can kind of see her being like, okay, so she's actually rich, and that's what I need to look like. So I don't know, that's something that I've clocked watching this movie as many times as I have. I liked her. She added something to this.
Definitely. And her and Holly both have so many similar characteristics on paper, but are such completely different characters. But it's great to see how they portray that so differently on stage. But when you'd say that, oh, they're both fancy and well-dressed and confident and or commanding of the men in their lives. So similar, but so different. And that was really interesting.
Yeah.
So I think that character was actually a very good addition.
I think so, yeah. And like I said, like in the book, Paul doesn't have a name. He literally is just telling you a story of how he met Holly and like the couple months that he knows her. And so you don't get to know anything about Paul. And obviously that's not going to work in a movie. So you kind of have to give him some character traits, and I think they did a good job of it. So that was nice to kind of see and to kind of remind myself of after many years, and reading the book and watching the movie in the same week was kind of interesting. It was a good comparison for me. So the party scene.
Oh, yes.
You've said it's too slapsticky.
Well, it's funny and I really enjoy it, but it does drag.
It does drag. I will say it is just a little bit too long. I just love how well they did at like showing the weird little mini parties that happen at a big house party like that, and how there's like so many things going on at once, and things can change at the drop of a hat, and like things are like weird or crazy or dramatic, and it's just like it was super fun to see that kind of done in a movie. And how when people drink, and like the lady with the mirror, like she goes from being real happy to being real sad in like the drop of a hat, and however long it takes to pan around the party again. Yeah. And I liked that because it felt real, and it felt like you were actually at a party.
I think it captures a lot of those things. I would maybe push back on the it felt real. It felt heightened and over the top and silly to me. But I think it does a good job at capturing those elements and then presenting them in a funny way. Yeah. And yeah, it doesn't surprise me that this guy would go on to do movies that are all about big groups in a party in one room, because that's what he's good at.
He did do The Party.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I looked that up earlier, but it didn't
Yeah, the scene looks a lot like that movie. I always heard that movie was so great, so I was going to go watch it. And then it was a white guy doing an Indian accent. And I was like, oh, this is just a bit at the beginning. It's like, oh, this is the whole movie,
That's the whole movie.
And he's just going to paint his face brown. And I couldn't get through it.
I do not blame you.
I hear it's good, though. I did love that exploration of her space as well. Her apartment is remarkable in a lot of ways. It's, of course, going to be another thing that is probably meant to symbolize Holly herself, because she says, like, oh, the cat, and that's a clear one. But her apartment also, she's lived there for a year, but hasn't really moved in. She hasn't put down roots.
Yeah.
She has suitcases. Her phone is in a suitcase. Her couch is a bathtub. And it straddles the line, as does Holly's character in general, of like, look at this quirky free spirit. And it's a little lazy some of the time. We're like, okay, how about she has a couch that's a bathtub? Wild. What a free spirit. Maybe she has a hamburger phone. It just feels a little Juno in that sense of just going a little heavy-handed on the look how quirky I am. But also it does seem fitting that this is a person who kind of just appropriates whatever to make her life what she needs it to be at that moment. And it's utilitarian in some points. And you could say that it's not really her, but she doesn't know who she is. So she can't kind of put that stamp on her home. She can't have a Holly Golightly styled home because she doesn't know. Am I Holly? Was it Lula Mae?
Lula Mae Barnes.
Lula Mae Barnes. Is that based on his mom, Capote's mom?
I don't know.
His mom has a very similar name and story, like really similar. And he has a really similar story to the unnamed narrator of the book. So that's a little weird. But I guess in the book, they weren't lovers, so it's fine.
No, exactly.
They were just friends. And then on the other hand, Paul kind of knows what he wants much more clearly than what Holly does, even though he's maybe doing things that he isn't too proud of on the way to what he wants. So his space is much more functional and fully decorated, and the man you see and how he's dressed is reflected in his room a lot more. And then it's interesting when Holly goes into his room and she immediately takes over, right? She walks in, I don't know if she lights a cigarette, she pours herself a drink, she gets into the bed, and she's commanding other people's spaces, much like her character commands the attention of other people's lives. She's like, nope, this is mine now. But she's going and taking everything from others, but she doesn't have that for herself. She doesn't have her own space. Tiffany's is her space. Her apartment is just there. It's where she sleeps.
Yeah, absolutely. Truman Capote's mom was Lily Mae.
Oh, okay. So very different.
So different.
Who also I think was from small town, maybe it's Mississippi or Alabama?
New Orleans, Louisiana. They moved to Monroeville, Alabama.
Right.
So I think he lived in that area.
And now that I'm kind of on a roll with one thought, it is kind of interesting that at the beginning she's at Tiffany's and throughout she's in Manhattan, she's in the glitzy, glamorous places. But at the end when if you believe that that's her true self.
Yes.
I think that's not great, but the movie wants you to believe that at the end when she kisses him, that's who she really is. And it's in this shoddy alley that's raining and there's nothing glamorous around her. No. And she's kind of embracing that or allowing that to show finally.
She's holding this smelly cat.
Yeah. Why is he smelly? Cat's not smelly.
I don't know.
Cat smells great.
That cat wouldn't smell great.
The poor cat. That cat was a good actor. That cat got tossed into a window and great cat acting.
Jumping on people. Just, it was good cat. Good job, cat.
Oh, I should have looked it up for work. Oddly enough, I wrote a little biography of the cat that played Cat.
Oh, really?
I was doing a thing on famous cats in media. Because of course I would.
Such an indie thing to do.
It's a scavenger hunt for children where they can find famous cats in books, movies, and TV.
Orangey,
yeah. Orangey was in a few movies. I think Orangey won a few Animal Acting Awards, but that award is no longer given out.
Oh, that's not fair.
I think we need to bring it back. I think there should be an Oscar for animal performance. It doesn't need to be cat specific, but just best animal performance.
Oh, yeah. Orangey was in the Beverly Hillbillies.
Yeah.
Batman.
There you go.
Mission Impossible.
That cat worked.
I Dream of Jeannie.
Wow.
Gidget. Fluffy.
I don't know what Fluffy is.
I don't either. Petticoat Junction, which I don't actually know what it is, but I've heard of it.
But you know what Gidget is?
Gidget is a movie. I don't know.
Okay. I was just going to be like, I'm surprised you know Gidget, but not Petticoat Junction.
I've heard of Gidget as well. Those are just like names.
Yeah, because you're like,
movies.
oh yeah, wasn't Orangey in that?
Yeah, it was like my favorite cat, Orangey, was in Gidget, obviously.
Orangey was great. Orangey, normally I would say stole the show, but you got Audrey and George Papard in it, so.
Yeah, Orangey did some work.
That's what I'm saying.
Wow.
It showed.
Good job, Orangey. Orangey was fantastic.
Orangey was fantastic.
I liked how much she loved that cat and how much she realized she loved it in the end. It was a touching moment.
Because she's like loving someone. I wish they didn't use the word belong so much.
Yeah.
But loving someone is not a cage, she's realizing, and then is capable of loving Orangey.
Can love
and
have
being
things.
loved herself.
Yeah. I don't know that I have like much else on this movie. Do you have anything?
I guess the only other thing I think of when we talk about this movie, because we both say her performance is great, his performance is great, but it is a very 60s movie.
Yeah.
In the 50s, we kind of only got two different types of women in a lot of popular film, at least. You either had the housewife, which is more present on sitcoms, I suppose, but the mother and housewife, or like the sex pot, the Marilyn Monroes, and there wasn't much between. For the most part, at least. That's what we were seeing. And this movie, of course, is iconic in its style, in the actual clothing that people were wearing, which is very 60s. And then having that party scene, and then coming with this character of Holly, who seemed to really usher in the 60s in cinema. This is not quite the mid to late 60s of like free love and that kind of thing, but it's on the way there. And it is a huge departure from so many of the characters we had seen before that.
Yeah.
So this movie, whether you love it or not, I think it is hugely influential in ushering in what 60s cinema would be and 60s culture.
Yeah, absolutely.
So much of this has like superseded the film. It is bigger than the movie now. And I think a lot of people who talk about loving this movie and loving the style don't actually know the story of the movie. They're just like, no, I've seen the posters, and I don't want to diminish it in that way, but that's not really diminishing because those posters and these images are so influential.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like Little Black Dress.
Audrey Hepburn Little Black Dress is just such a thing.
Yeah, and that was seen as a departure at this time because bolder prints and patterns were in. She, from what I understand of contemporaneous articles, they were talking about this dress as like, oh, she is a practical person. She is someone who means business. And that seems so different from what we take from this. And like when we were talking about the Audrey Hepburn bio episode we did a couple of episodes ago, how we think of Audrey Hepburn in one way, but that was not how she was seen at the time. So it's very interesting that her and her style and the style of the movie are so big that our views have changed to accept them rather than thinking that this was what they thought it was at the time. It's changed over time because it changed the way we think about so much of that.
Yeah. Yeah. I one little thing that I liked is that she, like, it feels like she wears so many different outfits in this movie.
I think it's only like
it's
4.
Like 2 black dresses, and then there's like a couple
necklaces
other things.
And hats change.
Necklaces and hats, scarves, gloves. Like, you just add the accessories, and you can really see how, like, when you know this and you watch the movie, you can see just how utilitarian she is, even though she is giving off this glamour and this, like,
she doesn't actually have the budget for 5 great outfits a week. She has the budget for 2, and she makes them work.
And like a little black dress is universal, as we all learned as girls.
Yep, that's what I learned.
So yeah, I just thought the costuming of this movie it's iconic, and you see it in
Edith Head again.
Yeah, and Monsieur Givenchy. I just want to say, like, we were talking about how this movie has kind of superseded itself and like just become part of like Audrey Hepburn lore. And I think that it's so crazy to see it in other really well-established media. Like, what was I watching? Oh, Big Little Lies had a whole Audrey Hepburn themed episode. And like Gossip Girl had a whole Breakfast at Tiffany's themed episode. And it's just like really interesting to see how much of a mark she made on just like even modern media. These are shows that are coming out in the last like 20 years. And it's cool to see this, but I also don't love it because they don't always get the true meaning of the movie.
Yeah.
When they're doing it, they're doing this like fabulous girl in a fabulous dress in front of a fabulous store living a fabulous life. And I'm like, that's not like
It's not how the movie's about.
what the story is. Like she's standing in front of Tiffany's to cure her depression because her life is a little bleak.
Yeah.
So I would just like people to like actually understand the movie before putting it in their TV shows, but it is amazing to see just how like universally iconic this movie is.
Yeah, the idea of Breakfast at Tiffany's is way bigger than the movie Breakfast at Tiffany's.
Yeah.
Whether we love it or not, the world takes what it wants and makes of it what it wants.
Yeah, and this has become a wildly romantic ideal to strive for.
To be broke and living off
tips.
Tips essentially.
Yeah.
For who knows what.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah. So Audrey Hepburn, Breakfast at Tiffany's, great movie.
Very good movie.
Great book. And
very good book as well.
And go see it. If you haven't already seen it, we've just like ruined it for you. But like go
read
consume both, please.
Yeah. And then go watch My Fair Lady.
Yes.
Which might be my second favorite Audrey Hepburn movie. Roman Holiday is definitely number one. And then you could put like Funny Face, My Fair Lady, Sabrina.
I think Breakfast at Tiffany's, My Fair Lady, Roman Holiday.
Oh, Two for the Road. Two for the Road might be number three.
Oh, I've never seen that.
It's very good. I'll at least do my top three. Roman Holiday, My Fair Lady, Two for the Road. Funny Face, Sabrina.
Okay.
There's 5. What do you got? You gave your 3 already,
I gave my 3. I think I need to see more Audrey Hepburn now.
We all do.
I think
now more than
now
ever.
and forever. Yeah. I loved the moment. Sorry, just to like talk about one more thing from the movie. I love the moment where she's sitting on the windowsill strumming her guitar singing Moon River.
Oh yeah, we didn't talk about Henry Mancini and his score, which was
beautiful. Very
good, but especially Moon River.
Yes, and you see her at her kind of most relaxed and most stripped down, and she's just Holly.
That moment, yeah, that's maybe my favorite moment. It's
and
iconic for a good reason. I said like, watch how she says hi at the end of
No, that's like iconic.
That high, and earlier there's a how do I look?
Yeah.
That are the best line deliveries.
Yeah, absolutely. Audrey, amazing.
She really is.
Okay, well, we will see you next week when we rebroadcast our thoughts on My Fair Lady. Okay, we'll see you then. Bye.
Goodbye.
So,